All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We're going to talk about milk pricing in this lecture. Milk pricing is really extremely complicated. There's a lot of pieces that go into milk pricing, so it is an extremely confusing topic. I am going to just barely scratch the surface here and kind of give you just a little bit of background about milk pricing and what goes into milk pricing and what the actual prices are right now. So not only is milk pricing extremely confusing, it's also extremely controversial. And you can see in this picture, farmers are dumping milk because they were so unhappy with the milk prices. I think this was in Ireland. So why is milk pricing so complicated? So when we're looking at milk pricing, there's really supply and demand of hundreds of products. It's not just we milk our cows and we sell our milk. It's so much more complicated than that. And when we're looking at products such as cheese, those are not produced independently. And there's a lot of dairy products on the market like that that are not produced independently. And when we look at the difference between manufactured products and fluid products, manufactured products are really market driven, but then fluid products like milk are not market driven. They are driven by manufactured products. So see how it's getting complicated already. We have a lot of transportation of milk. Milk moves all over the country. We're lucky here at the Southwest Regional Dairy Center. Our milk can go just across the street to Schreiber, or it can go to the Metroplex, but it doesn't really go very far. But we sell our milk to Dairy Farmers of America, and Dairy Farmers of America have to fulfill all of their contracts. And so, yes, our milk most likely goes to Schreiber or to the Kroger plant in the Metroplex, but it can go to a lot of other areas. Like it could even go down into San Antonio if they needed the milk for school milk. So transportation of milk, really milk moves all over the country. We also see a lot of seasonality of milk demand and production when we're looking at like around the holiday time in December. There's a lot of demand for cheese. And every August, when schools start back up, there's a big demand all of a sudden for school milk for their lunches. And so that seasonality can really make milk pricing complicated. There's a lot of regional differences, not only in how much milk is produced, the quality of milk, but also how we price milk, which I'll get into in a little bit. And also, it's extremely political, and it's extremely political around the world. So when we're looking at the basics of milk pricing, there's different factors that affect milk price. So pounds, like how many pounds of milk, the butter fat, protein, somatic cell count, where you're located, how milk is going to be used, and your bacteria counts. Those are all determined by something that we call the Federal Milk Market Orders, and I will talk about those in just a moment. And then the volume shipped, the distance shipped, and the overorder premiums, those are determined by your co-op or your plant, so wherever you are shipping your milk to. And when you see the 8 out of the 10 or the 6 out of the 10, there's 10 different Federal Milk Market Orders, and so the protein and the somatic cell count, those are how many are being impacted by the Federal Milk Market Orders. So when we're talking about the classified pricing, it's really going to be according to the elasticity of demand. So we can really set different prices according to what products are going to be used for different milk classes. There's 4 different milk classes, which I'm going to talk about in just a few slides. So there's going to be higher prices for those for which demand is most what we call inelastic, and so fluid milk. And then excess milk from reduced consumption is diverted to uses for which demand is more elastic. And so those are things like manufactured products. But then within a federal order, producers are going to receive a uniform price, and that's going to be based on utilization, regardless of wherever it ends up being used. Remember, there's 4 different classes, and so that milk could really go into any of those 4 classes. So these are the 4 classes. So class 1, 2, 3, and 4. And generally, they go from highest to our lowest value. So class 1 is fluid milk, so whole milk, etc. Class 2 is our cream and our soft manufactured products, so things like cottage cheese. Class 3 is our hard manufactured products, so like our hard cheeses that we like to eat. And then class 4 is our butter and our powder class, and that's just butter and milk powder. So you've heard me talk about the federal orders. So what are they? They really set the minimum price for about 70% of milk within the U.S. And there's 3 major objectives to these federal orders. 1, to ensure that consumers have adequate supply of milk at a reasonable price. 2 is to promote greater producer price stability and orderly marketing. So try to get a little bit more of a stable price for producers. And then 3, to provide adequate producer prices to assure an adequate current and future grade A milk supply. So we want to make sure that in the future we're also going to be having. And you can see the federal orders here. California was the latest to be added. They did not have a milk market before this, and you can see Texas is in what we call the Southwest market. So Southwest marketing area, Federal Milk Marketing Order 126, that is Texas. And you can see where our milk is being utilized. So our milk is being utilized greatest in class 3, followed by class 1, then class 2, and then class 4. So when we're talking about the differences in pricing, there's different ways that we can talk about pricing. So we could say we're on a fluid market, or we can say we're on a component market. So where I just moved from, the Southeast, they were on a fluid market, right? It's the most densely populated area in the US, down in that Florida, Tampa area. And so all the milk kind of moves southeast to bring milk to that area. But here in Texas, we're on a component market. So 6 out of the 10 orders are going to use this component pricing. Component prices are based on the market price of manufactured dairy products as surveyed by National Agricultural Statistics Service, so that's NASS. So butter fat is off of the NASS butter price survey, and protein is off of the NASS cheese price. And then other solids are going to be from the dry whey survey, and then non-fat solids are going to be from the NASS non-fat dry milk survey. And then the fat and skim milk pricing, which you can see those are 4 out of the 10 orders. So Arizona, Appalachian, Southeast, and Florida. And they're not paid for any of those components that I just talked about, except for butterfat. And so they are paid on a uniform skim milk price per 100 weight of volume of skim milk marketed, plus a uniform butter price. And the uniform prices are weighted averages across all the classes of milk. And then we're going to adjust for plant location. So you could either be really close to the plant or really far away from the plant, and then that would be positive or negative. You heard me call this milk pricing fluid pricing. That is kind of the term that everyone uses in the industry, but it's truly called skim milk pricing. It's not actually fluid, but you will hear that term, but just know that it is skim milk. So when we're looking at actual prices of the dairy products, it's not just one, here's your check. It's a blend price. And so wherever your milk ends up, it's going to be how much percent of your milk ends up in that class 1, 2, 3, 4 times those different prices, because they're all going to be priced differently, and that is going to be your blend price. So if we look at an example, and this is a really old example, we can see the different utilizations for class 1, 2, 3, 4, and the different prices for class 1 through 3, 4. And then, so we have that blend price. Then we will have an order adjustment. And then when we come down to the very bottom, the PPD is called producer price differential. And that is just really how milk is being used. And I am going to put up an article that talks a little bit more about PPD and how it affects Milk-Trex, because it can affect Milk-Trex either positively or negatively, which is kind of terrible when it is negative. And so when we come to the milk price for right now, you can see prices for 2, 3, and 4 here. So this is our milk marketing order. So this is Texas. This is Southwest. You can see that it's $16.84 for class 2 price. Class 3 is $17, and then class 4 is $16.20. And so this is on per hundredweight. So you can see prices as of February 2020 are not that high, unfortunately. So if we look at milk prices over time, really volatile. That's really hard for dairy producers. And so when we look at 2014, that was the champion year for milk prices. That's when milk prices were the highest, and they have continued to drop since then. They are slowly increasing a little bit, but I think that we might see another hit here with the coronavirus outbreak, but we'll still have to see what happens. All right, I am going to link some podcasts that talk about milk pricing and also some links for you all to read. Have a good rest of your day.